to just say thank you first of all for you doing this, Matty. And if anybody doesn't know who this is Matty. Used to one time go by DCL Blogger. I don't believe that's the moniker anymore. Um, uh,
Yeah,
what is your title these days, Matty? What is it?
I
CEO
think
of
it's just Matty.
Medically? Matty? For that's literally what Rizzle told me too. He's like, I'm just full time Rizzle, man. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. Well, good to be here, man. Good to talk to you after a long
Of
time.
course,
For anyone
man.
that's listening, me and Frankie have been working on things, doing crossing paths for 3, maybe even 4 years now. It's been a long time.
Yeah, you were the. I think
We'll
you might
probably
have
get
been the
into
first
that.
person I ever spoke to about NFTs, in any kind of
Really? Holy
well, and
shit.
like in any kind of like seriousness. Like 'cause I was so new,
Mm,
and I just had that idea about the wearables at the time, and I messaged you
mm.
about that, and I was like really the first time I went to any kind of conference that I said, hey, I think I know something, you know?
Oh, nice, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Good
so
times.
yeah.
Good times. But in terms of my title, I honestly don't know. I mean, when I started this whole space, I started the DCL blogger
Hmm.
name, and that's because I was blogging about Decentraland because no one else was making
Right,
marketing content on DCL.
right.
But then obviously went on to found the Medikey and do all this sort of stuff. And my follower base is interesting because some of them don't know that I'm the CEO of the Medikey, and the other people don't know that I have anything to do with DCL. So
Mm,
it's all over the place. So I just say, oh, screw it. It's just Matty.
right, exactly. As long as you know the name, you're gonna be in good hands. Let me tell you. So yeah, really good to talk to you again after all this time. Like I said, like Maddie said, we used to work on this and that. Maddie's the person that got me into so many different circles within the NFT space and put me in, I guess, position to do this podcast because I know all these people mainly through Maddie. I mean, whether it's been 1 degree of 2 degrees of separation, it's usually not much farther than that. So, like I said, very happy and I'm very humbled to have you on the show, man. So how's it
Thanks, man.
been? Let's just start with how's it been, and then we'll go to how did it start because I haven't talked to you in too long, so I just want to know how has it been.
Thanks, man. That's a good question. It's been hectic. It's been exciting. I think it was really exciting at the start when all these people that you wouldn't think would start hitting you up in DMs. You're like, oh, holy shit, it's the CEO of so and so company. And you're like, whoa, what's going on in the NFT space, right?
Right.
This happened in 2021, I think. It just blew up out of
Mm-hmm.
control. And then it just got exhausting and mentally unsustainable, like the influx of things that were coming your way. And as an entrepreneur, you want to do everything. So you
Right.
sort of say, yes, yeah, cool, yeah, I'll do that podcast or I'll do that interview. Or I'm happy to jump on a call and explain NFTs to you. But then it started to get really exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to really pick where you want to be and you start to analyze the space and see, all right, well, where do you find the most joy being the joy to money ratio or the joy to sustainability ratio?
Right.
And then I think in the last year or two, it's been a consolidation of just where I feel good in the NFT space.
Right.
Like you can do so much, man. And as you know, like you can do podcasts and run a social account. You can be a consultant. You can
Mm-hmm.
be a CEO of a company.
Mm-hmm.
You can get like anyone in the NFT space can probably get a high paying job in any Web2 brand that's entering the NFT ecosystem. There's so many paths to choose,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually it comes down to, especially if you've made a bit of money in the NFT space, you start to be a bit pick and choosy about where you want to be. And yeah, I think the last 12 to 24 months has been figuring it out. Like for example, blogging. I
Mm-hmm.
used to blog a lot. I used to
Right.
write a lot.
Right.
But to be honest, I hate writing. Like every inch of me despises writing. I just don't have the patience for it.
Right.
So I transitioned that to just more content on Twitter. Twitter started to be my way of writing because it was just so simple and easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so just finding these little transitions and changes where I feel better. So yeah, it's been good, man. It's been exciting, good, but uh, mentally exhausting. I don't know about you, but it's been
No, I think
fucking
that's a great summary.
insane.
That's a great summary of it. Because even on all the scale, like on whatever the scale you're on, yeah, it does get definitely mentally exhausting at least. You know,
Hmm.
the roller
I feel
coaster
it's
that we're
specific
on.
to the NFT space, though. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, because I mean, like what you're talking about is I have so many people who are in many different stages of their understanding of NFTs. And you're always the guy explaining. So I'm always the person. Like I was out, man. I wish you were with me. I was out with some financial people, and I'm not going to get into who and where or whatever. But it was a bunch of financial people, and I'm thinking that they might be kind of hip to at least to understanding this and that. No,
Mm.
absolutely not. Zero knowledge. And I'm not saying these are the CEOs of those companies or whatever, but they're big investment companies. And these people were
Mm.
just completely ignorant to it and like willingly ignorant. Like they were just like,
Mm.
nah, I'm not into that. I'm not trying it. I'm not, whatever. I'm like, cool, because I understand where it's going. You know, when it comes to NFTs, I know that, you're going to have your ups and downs with the money. The money is one thing. It's a completely different beast than what's going on in the industry. And I feel like when I
Mm.
explain that, only thing people hear is, I just want to make a ton of money and where is it? You know?
Mm.
So a lot of people in
Money
the
brings us all together.
yeah, for real. But I feel like when you're explaining things to people, it's kind of hard to explain when unless you start throwing dollar amounts around. And a lot of times,
Yeah.
since I'm not in a consulting role, I mean, you want to pay me, I'll tell you how much money to make, it can be made. But
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
not just in a loose conversation, be like, oh yeah, we're gonna make 100,000 or whatever $1 million, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like, nah, So it's funny when you're explaining stuff to people, and you're just talking about the technology. They're like, yeah, well, how much? What about the money? And I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, no one really paid attention to this space apart from the handful that were building until sales started hitting record prices, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny. It is the money that brings interest, but then that money gets used to build better product. But you're right, man. A lot of people, I feel like explaining NFTs, I feel like you cannot explain NFTs. Like you cannot explain how the NFT space is good unless that person has had the emotion of purchasing an NFT.
Yeah.
Like you can explain maybe a bit of the mindset and why it might you can draw parallels from the collector world and why art has a multi-billion-dollar industry and why people pay
Right.
tens of thousands of dollars for a Pokemon card even though was even though it cost 3 cents to make in a factory. Like there is parallels, but
Hmm.
um people don't get it until they own that NFT and it's like, oh shit, okay, cool. Like
It's almost
this is
like I either
interesting.
want. It's like I want to talk to your manager or I want to talk to your kids. It's like one of the two. Like I can't talk to you. But
Yeah.
maybe your person above you knows, and maybe your kids know. But
Mm.
like when it comes to like the normie, what I man would say the normies, you know, uh, yeah, man, it's a real tough conversation, and
Yeah.
again, it does that whole mental exhaustion of it because you're almost
Yeah, man.
it's to a point of like argumentative, like I don't want to argue this about, I'm good, I'm
Yeah.
comfortable in my space, like, my Frankie,
Yeah.
I'm doing fine, whatever. I don't need to talk to
Yeah.
you about anything. So it's not like I'm like,
Yeah.
there's always a misconception that somebody thinks that I might want to do business with them or something. Like, I can care less, man. Like,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. Is this live, by the way? Or you
No,
gonna
we're
cut
just
this out?
recording it. We're recording it, and then I'm gonna edit it up and do
Yeah, cool. I might have my father-in-law walk back into this office, so I might have to pause and maybe find another spot. Just
oh,
giving you the heads up.
that's cool. Now edit
Yeah.
all that shit. Man.
Yeah. Cool. But to get back on topic, man, I started to realize because we're excited to talk about NFTs. Anyone asks us what you're doing, we're
True,
excited to
true.
tell them about this industry.
Especially in the beginning, but after a while, I think
Yeah.
you have to have
But after a
a
while,
pump
you
the brakes
realize how
moment.
exhausting
Yeah.
a 45-minute conversation and argument is with some
Argument,
people, and you're just like,
argument.
yeah, yeah. And then you just end up picking. You start to suss out whether this person's receptive to the idea or not, and if it's not,
Hundred
you're like,
percent.
I got a marketing business, and you just ended at that.
Yeah.
Or you're like, I'm into NFTs. And you start
Hmm.
explaining.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, that's any new person I meet that asks me what I do for a living, I'm just like, yeah, I just got a marketing business. I do
Yeah.
something on the internet. I don't get
Yeah.
into it too much. I try and just like blow it off because I
That's.
mean, it's exhaustive just explaining
Hmm.
crypto and NFTs.
Hmm.
A lot of people think it's a scam, and yeah,
100%, and
it is what it
that's
is.
the thing I don't like to be kind of grouped in is because it's tough. Like any new asset you're gonna have. I mean, when the internet first started, how many things were a scam? There probably was a million things that were a scam, you know. And if you were legitimately working on like AOL or something like that, you would have been grouped in with the people that were doing like bait clickbait scams or something, So it's just
Mm,
you know that's the way things are gonna look like in the beginning, but it's the
mm,
beauty. I guess the double-edged sword, the gift and the curse of being in the beginning. So,
Mm,
now,
yeah.
kind of speaking of that, the beginning for you, what did that look like?
The beginning of the NFT space?
NFT space, not crypto. And I know you had a little going on with
Ooh,
crypto before.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what did that look like
The
for you?
NFT space for me, I remember looking at Ethermon or
Mm-hmm.
Ethereumon back then, and I was looking at all these digital pets, and I remember my wife was there, and I was like, "Babe, you know what you're looking at on the screen? This is gonna be my full-time income." And she's like, "I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know how that's gonna work." And I was like, "Yeah," because I was gonna buy and sell these pets for a sustainable income. That was my goal.
Right.
And yeah, man, it didn't end up being Ethermon. It ended up being DCL. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for the start for me was getting into Decentraland, buying land before OpenSea even was a thing, or even before Decentraland had a marketplace. I remember doing OTC trades,
Wow.
um,
That's sketchy.
where
I talking
I
about
would,
like early
yeah,
OTC
it's
NFT trades, man.
yeah, but it's so interesting how communities organize themselves
Mm-hmm.
and make certain activities that may be sketchy and risky, they
Mm-hmm.
find safe ways to do it. So,
Right.
for example, I used to negotiate with someone on Discord who would say, "Yo, I'm selling two lands, and these are my lands, blah blah blah," and I'd be like, "Yeah, cool." I'd negotiate a price with them, and say I would have negotiated four lands for 8,000 mana or something at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd manually send them 2,000 mana, and they'd manually send me the land back, and obviously there was some trust that was needed to be done there.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, mana was about 8 cents or something. So it
Yeah,
was
it's
only a
cheap.
couple $100. It was still scammable, but $200 is less enticing than I'm assuming $2,000 to run away with.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, man. Back then, I did hundreds of deals and never got scammed once. And everyone was weirdly trustworthy. And because that was the norm, OTC trading was the only way to
Mm-hmm.
sell your land. Everyone started to have there was a spreadsheet, Frankie, that was going out there with people's names and the amount of trades that people have done with those. So vetting people on Discord, so you know that if
Okay.
someone wants
Okay.
to sell or buy, you know who's legitimate. And it started to become a thing where we would only deal with them, and they
Mm-hmm.
started to become escrows, and we were organizing ourselves to find safe ways to do it. Obviously, there was a risk, but where there's risk, there's reward if you can understand how to balance it, right? So for me, I was like, oh, if I get scammed 1 out of 5 times, fuck it, I'm in profit. 4 out of the 5 times, I'll make way more money. That will offset the getting scammed once. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I never got scammed.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the early days, right? No OpenSea, no marketplace, no smart contracts to
Yeah.
activate or transfer assets. But yeah, blogging about DCL, learning about CryptoKitties and all these things. There was really just a handful of projects that were doing somewhat good
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of others. And DCL land flipping is what kept me in the space. If it wasn't for that, I would have probably been out, 6 months in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's how it started.
That's crazy. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting like notifications. I'm gonna have to edit out. Yeah, the early days were pretty wild. I remember I got in and you had already done a lot of land flipping. I watched a lot of your videos about that in the beginning, and
Mm.
that was one of the things that enticed me. I know I bought land after watching videos of yours. Um, the
Oh,
first
nice.
yeah, the first video I watched about any of this stuff was Steve Wand, but after that, I wanted to know more about DCL, and then when I typed in DCL or Decentraland, I got DCL Blogger, and so from there, and we
Mm.
went on and learned a little bit. Okay, this is how the market works, and I went in and got my first couple pieces, and it was the same thing where I went into work, and I was like, I'm buying land today, and my manager, he's my friend, he's like, whatever, man, you're crazy, they know I'm like good for a crazy idea, so, you know, I went with it, and it was probably the best decision I ever made, just because of the connections I made. Even if I wasn't necessarily flipping land, especially at the prices that I was getting land at. It wasn't
Mm.
necessary for flipping, But I mean,
Mm.
I still own the bar, which is the original first two pieces of land that I bought, So
Mm.
it's been really good for me as far as education, as far as my
Mm.
connections I've made, obviously with you and so many people in the background that that don't necessarily have a public platform. You know, it taught me
Mhm.
a lot of things like how to code and how to model and do all this stuff that that I never would have believed. That would have been a skill set of mine. So
Mm.
it's kind of like,
Web3 skills.
yeah, yeah. You just throw yourself in there. Like I
Hmm.
know so many people who picked up coding that 100% would have never picked up coding if it wasn't for this stuff. So
Yeah,
you just see the
yeah.
value in it,
No,
and you're
it's
like,
good,
okay, I
man.
know what to do with it.
There's a handful of projects in the NFT space that just push you down some really deep rabbit holes, and
Right.
DCL was one of them.
Hmm.
And there were the right rabbit holes to go through. Like, yeah, you would make money flipping land, but like you said, you'd also learn skills like coding and 3D development and marketing and running conferences and social meetups. And these were necessary skills, right?
Yeah.
So I think we were a bit fortunate to find DCL when we did.
Right. Right. Yeah. I always felt it. I always equated it to like for the metaverse. If you want to just put it in that big, that big conglomerate, whatever. I always looked at it as like you're learning how to be like the concrete company. You're learning how to be the oil company, the essential, things
Mm,
within the space because we don't even have those yet. Like a lot of people always bring up porn every single time I talk about this to like a newer person, and I'm like, you know how far out we are from that because there's so much more business to be done than porn. Like, not to say I'm not taking nothing away from anybody that wants to do that. I just felt like you can have a porn company when you don't have like a police department. And not that I
mm.
want to be the police. I'm just saying that there's things to be done before you have a strip club. You might want to have a grocery store. You know.
Mm. Yeah, no, makes sense. Makes sense.
So,
Hey, there was all kinds of weird clubs of that nature in the
right.
early days of DCL.
Oh yeah, yeah. And again, that's people kind of going with the first thought or what they might have had like in their mind from Web 2 things. When my
Mm.
if your reference is Second Life, and you go into Second Life and you see like a bunch of naked avatars and all kinds of stuff like that, then your natural way of looking at it might be like that. But I don't. I looked at it much differently right from the beginning because there was, in my mind, there was a lot more business to be done, and I'm just like, we can really do stuff with this stuff.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people come in when there's a proven model. Not many people are willing to experiment to find out what this is all about. Because, man, a lot of people I speak to in IRL, they just want they're like, all right, well, tell me what coins to put my money in. I'm like, that's not how it
Exactly.
works. It's not how it works. It's
Exactly.
the wrong question, right?
And everybody wants that point and click answer. It's like, where does it go? Just let me know, and then I'll collect the money. You know.
Well, you know what? Talking about that, one of my friends got super into crypto,
Hmm.
and then he's like a simple-minded guy, and he likes the easy stuff.
Hmm.
And then he got really into staking. And
Yeah,
I would have
same here.
never thought this person would have gotten into staking because staking is something that you get into when you're really deep into the crypto world, right?
Hmm.
And like a normie wouldn't get into staking that easily. And the
Yeah.
reason why he got into staking is because Axie and Infinity and their access yield, they made it so easy where all you have to do is just rock up every day and click restake, and
Right. Yeah.
then
Yeah. There was
you were
no
making money.
gas fees
So
barely. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
yeah. So talking about like just because you mentioned like they just want a button that says do this,
the
it's
more
funny the
the
crypto
more money
space
button,
made
more money.
yeah, Axie Infinity literally made the get more money button.
Yeah, they
uh
weren't the first one staking, but that was really one of the first
no.
options of a side chain that was being staked on a like a mass scale. Like a lot of people knew about that. It was
Mm,
already kind of
mm.
going on. So yeah, actually was great on board for a lot of people. It taught a lot of people the
Yeah.
general gist of it in the easiest way possible. It gives you a little guy, you fight them. Oh, these guys can then accrue you SLP, which is another coin, and that could possibly make you some money. And then you can breed them and make another one and sell the other. So it became like an
Mm,
understanding of just generally how Web 3 works, even just on like the most basic scale. So,
mhm,
and a lot of these projects are, like I said, the, they haven't reached their fruition. They haven't reached like what they're really trying to get at long term.
mhm,
And so I'm excited to see what like I feel like we're in this stage now where we're gonna see a lot of projects that go from uh, ideas to like putting things into action, and that's when you're really like checking these people because at that point is when you're really gonna be like, okay, did that work? Is that
mm.
like is that economy like really gonna work? Is it with that with those
Mm,
with those algorithms
yeah.
that you've written up? Does that really make
Mm.
money? And so
And
it's
nine times out of ten, it's a no
yep, yep,
upon launch,
yep.
and then it's the fine tuning that gets it there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you got to keep
Like I
that
remember
community.
Axie Infinity. I actually never played that game. I thought it was boring. I know people played the game
Hmm.
back when they had a really basic version of the game out where it was just you just put two actors together and then the algorithm spits out a winner. I got into it when there was actually gameplay where you
Right.
you could play with the cards and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
So and DCL as well, another example where they launched and it was like, yeah,
You really had
complete
to have an
crap.
imagine. You had to have an imagination if you wanted to like look at DCL in the early days and say, "Oh yeah, I can see a whole world here." Like I can see businesses in here, and like yeah.
Man, I think I was as nervous, if not more nervous, than the team because I'd been blogging my ass off about it for 2 years before
Yeah.
it
Right.
launched. And anyone that went in there would have gone in there. Well, a lot of people came to DCL because of my content.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I knew that whatever the outcome of that would be would either make or break my brand. I was like,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. Some people came back. I remember the first day or two, it was just getting completely shat on.
Yeah.
And then every now and then one person would come by and be like, "Oh, that was pretty cool. Wow, DCL has some future." I was like, "Really? Cool." So
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
was like this collective confidence started to come back up.
Yep.
And this handful of projects that I saw launch and do terrible and then pick themselves back up.
Hmm.
It's interesting because it gives you that perseverance mindset where the NFT project you're working on or anything else that you see around you that may fall, it could pick back up because
Hmm.
it's been done. It's been done in the past.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just it's whether like the person has the vision and the team. Let's say the team has the vision, because you got to kind of stick to it. It's like you know, you got to believe that this is the thing that's going to happen down the road, and you don't know when down the road's going to be. Down the road, sometimes it's 3 months, and sometimes down the road is a whole couple years where,
Mm,
it's hard on you, and you're feeling broke and all kinds of stuff. You're like, why am I working on this? And I feel like
mm,
I remember a conversation. This is funny. It was probably Mana was around 3 cents, and I
mm.
remember one of my friends, a young kid, he said, Mana feels like a stable coin. And it was like, he might have not finished typing the sentence and it popped up to 10 cents. And I was just like, that's crypto, that's
That's
how
fine.
things work.
Yeah, yeah. I actually bought mana for my parents for around 8 cents
Yeah.
in 2019 when I was super into it, and I was like,
Hmm.
"Dad, just hold this. It's gonna go to 20, 30 cents. Trust me." And then it just got demolished. It went to 3 cents for like two
Hmm.
years,
Yeah.
and
That's
we
when
just
I
totally
got in
forgot
those
about
three
it. It
cents
was
forever.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and it went down to 3 cents, and my dad's 5K became like one and a half, and he was just like, "Ah, just leave it." And then it boomed, and then it became like 60K, and he was just like, "Oh!" And now he's so into crypto. And it's good. I actually like that he got in back then because he saw how it works.
Exactly.
Um, or else if people that got in the good days of crypto, they're not going to be here, not, and they won't know what to do when it gets eerily quiet.
Hmm. Hmm. You don't have no point
Mm,
of reference. You got to live through these crypto winters, they call them. So it's like
yeah.
it's not easy. Where I would, it's like a version of that going on right now, but it's not like. It's I try to like preface people with like, you don't know how bad it can look. Like it
Mm,
can look like this for an extended period of time. It don't necessarily have to go directly down and just down and down and down to zero, but if it just goes sideways from down, boy, that gets that gets tough on your mental.
mm, mm,
So you got to
mm,
understand that where the whole space is going, because otherwise you know you'll you'll become impatient, and then possibly sell off whatever it is that you had, and down the road,
mm,
it doesn't take much but a little bit of news, a little bit of interest, and then next thing you know, that project's right on the forefront. And I've seen too many
mm,
projects become number one and then number 700, and vice versa.
mm.
You know,
Yeah.
you look at these charts, especially if you look at like let's say a 24 hour or 7 day chart. Excuse me, a 7 day you know um, the top five projects or whatever, and it's like they're always changing. Because
Mm,
it it happens like where you have like oh, the interest is so high for this one project, it might be just starting. So the interest is high because the speculation, like, oh wow, I think this could do great. If I get in early, I'm gonna do great. So that's like the beginning, and then the team has to go to work after they launch whatever. When it comes to NFTs, you kind of have to create the NFT and then create the function. It's kind of hard to make all that happen all at once. So you're like,
Oh
okay,
man, it takes time.
yeah. So like this is,
Yeah.
when you write a contract, as far as like when you're coding it, you write all the contract out for let's say the NFTs themselves, and then you have to deploy them in order to use them then on the next on the project itself. So let's say you have a bunch of NFTs. Let's say they're land. You create all these land pieces. Well, then the land pieces have to go out for the project to then be to use them. You wouldn't make everything all at once. So that's kind of the process, and I think that so you have a lot of people that get in, I'm early, and then usually right after that I'm early sentiment, it just goes away, and it goes away in a way like, sometimes really fast, which means the prices go down, where that sentiment is like, oh, like I'm not into that, or they're not doing anything, so people forget about it. It's definitely not making me any money. I can't flip them no more, and people flip them to a certain number up high. It's unrealistic anyway. So then that comes back, and then until the next time that project put out, like actual, like tangible information. Oh wow, they're coming with this next thing, and that's how you stake on that, and this is why the economy works or makes sense, or why you would want to even have this in the first place. Then it's like, okay, then there's a second round of maybe excitement, but then it still might not be in practice. Like most projects today are still not in like full bloom, like even Decentraland is not in full bloom, and it's been going on since
I don't think any of
2017.
them are. Like
That's
if
what I'm
you
saying.
even if you look at Axie, you look at Sandbox hasn't even released yet to the public. You look at DCL, they still got probably 4 years ahead of them in stabilization and optimizations to get like really, really fluid. Maybe not 4 years, maybe 2 years. You look at Axie and Infinity, they're still a basic ass, like their game is so basic, man. It is
100%.
like
Yeah. It's just a little card
a
game that you can find
basic
almost
game.
anywhere. The only difference is you
Yeah.
can own the assets within the card game.
Yeah, yeah, and credit to them for making it. And I know there was a lot of work that went behind the math and the economy and everything, the algorithms of that. So credit to them. I'm not taking that away from them. I'm just
Right.
saying that when you zoom out, it's a super basic game.
Right.
They've got the land gameplay that's yet to come out, and that's when that goes full fledged in the next 2 to 4 years, I think that would be like you could say that Axie is reaching its final form, right?
Now, with
But
that
still,
being
like
said, though, the land was released in what,
yeah,
2018, something like that. So people were buying
the
packages.
land maybe late 19 or
Yeah.
something, but
But
maybe
so
even 18, man.
you
You're
have like
right.
these packages that were released, and they're like they had land items, they had land, and people held on to those for long, 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 and some of them maybe flipped them and made money, but it became a hard process to hold on to that and see the vision when even the game wasn't really going on. Like you said, the beginning it was like almost like a simulation. You put your guys against my guys and see who wins. And then it started
Yeah,
to be the card game, and now they've got a more in-depth card game with a couple extra moves, but there's still not the
mm,
land game. So if you were holding
yeah.
land since the beginning, you're like, man, I'm seeing a little bit, but what does my land do? What does my land potentially do?
Mm. I think there's a lot of pressure on them as well now, right? Like some of those lands are going for 100K plus, and it's like
Don't tell
shit.
me
Like, how do we have to make this game?
yeah, I sold those lands so early. Oh my god.
Me too, man. I had
Yeah,
100-piece Savannah land.
I
It
remember.
was like a full 100 set connected Savannah land. I think I sold it for 10 ETH, and I was like, yeah, flipped it for
Yeah,
2x.
yeah. I
Yeah.
remember you telling me that, and then I sold my land much later than you, feeling great. I'm like, man, like,
You were
uh,
crushing it with the breeding, weren't you?
oh yeah, we
You
did really well
breeding
with breeding.
birds
It was
like. Are you
yeah, me
still
and
doing
my
that?
yeah. I don't. I mean, I stopped really kind of dealing with Axie. I have
Mm,
Axies. I have enough Axies so when I want to get started again, I'll always be able to get started. I always had
mm,
I always keep myself I call like a good stable of Axies that I could always start breeding the breeds that I want and what have you. But I don't
mm,
actively play. Most of my friends that I got into, they still play. So I'm always
mm.
good with that.
Interesting.
My friends got into it. They play, and they've made money off of it and stuff. So that's really nothing more I can ask.
Yeah. Yeah, man. When you get your homies into what we're doing here, that's probably the best thing out of all of this. You make
Yeah,
some money, they make some money.
yeah.
You can sort of talk crypto in real life with them.
That's
I'm
been a
not sure about
blessing.
you, but
Yep.
yeah, for me, for a very long time, it's been no one in the real world has really understood what I do, and I think for you as well, it was the same until you got your roommate and stuff into it.
Right.
But
Yep.
yeah, it's good to see them win.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, it's good to see anybody who you either came up with or were broke with together or whatever it
Mm,
is. Now kind of flourishing, doing their own things. And what I was most proud of is that most of my friends, even if they got out of Axie or out of crypto, they found ways to invest, which I always thought was the underlying thing that we were getting after. Like we were learning how to invest.
mm,
Something that we're not
mm,
necessarily taught in school. You know,
mhm.
so it's like we were learning how to invest, and some got into this and some got into that, and we're all kind of thinking along the same lines. Whether it may be I'm into crypto and they're into dogs and cards and whatever it may be.
Yeah, I bet a lot of them got rug pulled, just like a lot of my friends and me. We
There's
had to go through
still
like 8 rug pulls and find one or two really good ones.
yeah, you have to lose some money around here. There's no way you're gonna always win. And
Yeah, yeah.
when you're looking for that,
Even yeah, I don't know about you, man. Like this bull run, you would think like I was, 4 years experience, but man, I've had some heavy L's in 2021 and 2022. You're like, fuck, like,
yeah.
why did I buy so much of this?
I
But
yeah,
yeah.
I know that I mean, we talk about the wearables. That was the first thing that I kind of connected with you on, and that was
Mm.
like, I thought that was gonna take me directly to the moon. I was like, I'll be sitting on the moon, 2020. That's where my brain was at the time, and I'd done pretty well on them, and I'm fine with the way. Cause here's the thing: is you got to remember the wins. Those wins got me into
Mm-hmm.
Axie, and then the
Mm.
Axie wins got me into art, and then the art wins they broke even. But
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
like whatever. You try to like take. I always tell my friends if you get a W, then take that and go find something else, and whatever that may
Mm.
be. And that's what I'm saying about many of my friends that took their W's and went and found some in real life things to go invest in. And I thought that was pretty cool. It's not just
Mm.
crypto. It's not. That was never what I was
Mm.
trying to get after. And with me, it's definitely my area of expertise. So I stick with it, and I know that in the later future I might want to get into this and that in the regular world, but for right now, that's kind of like what I like to do. So I'm cool with it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's good, man. It's been a good well, at least for me during COVID lockdowns and stuff, it's been a very good distraction.
You're right,
Crypto
and
NFTs
yeah,
and all that stuff.
you're out there in Australia, and like the lockdowns have been
Mm.
serious, huh?
Yeah, yeah. There was a period where there'd be 3 to 4 months straight, and then there was like a glimpse of hope where they'd release it for a bit, and then everyone would run outside to cafes and start meeting up, and then 2 days later they'd lock it down again, and
Yeah,
that went on for I think a whole year. It was pretty crazy, man.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I was honestly so deep into NFTs and crypto, it didn't affect me that
Hmm.
much
Oh yeah.
until the later days.
Hmm.
But yeah, I know like a lot of people were affected just mentally and work wise.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, out here it was wild because you had many states kind of battling each other, you know, in the states. So you had like,
Mm,
I don't know, these people, are for the mask, these people are for against the mask, and everybody wants to yell and shout and be physically violent. And that was what was crazy. I'm like, we have this sickness going on, and you want to go get like physical with people. I'm like, man, I don't want to be nowhere near people in this thing. But that was the nature of. I think the mental health thing was something that maybe a lot of the maybe was the unseen outcome of some of this stuff was like we didn't
yeah.
take into account that some people just really can't be inside like that, and
Mm,
it'll drive them crazy.
yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
was, I was able to just kick it back in the house. Like, all right, I've got this thing. I knew in the back of my mind before the thing started that I had, this NFT thing going on, and not that I knew it was gonna be a ton of money, but I knew I'd at least have something to do at the house.
Mm,
I was just learning DCL. I was like, man, I got so much to learn. I have, I could study Blender for a year. I could study coding for another year. So I knew that I had things to do, and then when it happened, the community really took me in with open arms. They were like, hey, you want to do this, you want to do that, yourself, like the whole Decentraland kind of like foundation. Really, like they really helped me out a lot because I had questions and they had the answers. So
Mm. Yeah,
that
that
was
was a good
clutch.
distraction.
Yeah, made a lot of
I think
friends.
there was a time though where it got a bit freaky when it first started, when COVID first hit. You're like, oh shit, what's the NFT industry going to do?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I think there was about 3 months of that, and then we're like, oh, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think that we had a real good understanding about midway through, a couple months in, like we're chilling. We're in Discords
Mm.
together. Discord was a way different thing back then. It was a lot more like less people, so you would kind of know anybody on this or that Discord server. Like a whole, a lot. You would know a lot of people,
Mm.
so it was kind of like a really tight community, and we all were able to kind of point each other in the right direction for the most part.
Mm.
It's funny because prior
Hmm.
to COVID was when I got in, and there was a lot of friction in DCL and in the NFT community in general. There was a lot of argumentative people and trolling and all kinds of stuff. And see, when the
What happened
pandemic
to Honey
happened,
Badger?
I ask this question all the time. I would imagine he runs by, or she, I don't know who, runs by a different name. I would imagine. Yeah, I don't think that they would run by the same name anymore, just because of the sheer amount of trolling that was kind of ill minded. So
Crazy.
I mean,
So funny.
we used to once joke about we're like, they probably bought in at 27 cents, and now if you think about it, so you know,
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know Honey Badger, I don't know if you want to explain it, Frankie,
oh
but
man, oh jeez, I
he
would
was like
say
a
epic troll,
3 year
epic troll
troll,
in the
or
beginning.
yeah, I don't know what it was. I think it was just like a heavy critic who just wouldn't sell and move on, but would stay in the Discord every day, hammering at DCL and every decision they made for 3 years straight.
Right, and it was
Like, all
mostly
right, fair
based on
enough, 3 months.
VR, right? That was the biggest thing that person
Yeah,
was
I think
upset
when
about.
DCL pivoted, yeah, I think when they pivoted to delay VR, he was just never positive from that point onwards. It was all about why they're doing, it was, I think they kept bringing up the same point as to why not VR, and honestly, I think it affected a lot of people as well. Like people they invested because it would be VR, but things change, and
Yeah,
it is
my thought is this.
the
I have a VR headset now, and like
mm,
I don't even use. Where is it? It's upstairs or something. I don't even know where it is. And not to say I
yeah.
never use it. It's just not ready. That whole platform is not ready. I go in there. It's like I do research in
Mm,
VR. I don't really use it like for fun. I go in there and
mm,
see where we're gonna be in a few years. But if we would have stuck to VR, whether we being Decentraland or we, so let's say CryptoVoxels or Sandbox or any of the main platforms, that they would have said we're strictly VR. I think that those companies or those platforms would still be waiting for their pop, because it just, and you could be doing so much more in the meantime, as far as
mm,
doing business and stuff like that. So I think that it's an understanding that the technology will be there at some point, but if you're not already doing something before because the technology can always be implemented. There's not gonna be no problem
mm,
2 3 years from now or whatever, 1 year from now, to implement VR in like a meaningful way. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
But for the time being, what do we look like having VR? And let's say some of the like not, or like having the DAO be like less active, or things like that. Or maybe not have gone so far with wearables and having people be able to create, or I don't know. I don't know what things would have had to lag behind, but I know that things would have had to lag behind, and I don't think that would have been the best case for Decentraland. I don't know about the other ones, but I do feel that VR is not ready today. It's not ready really tomorrow. We what needs to happen with VR, the headset needs to become lighter, needs to become more comfortable, and those are the two major things: lighter and more comfortable. And I feel like then people would want to do that a little bit more.
mm. Yeah, I read a article by Philip Rosedale, the guy that made Second Life,
Oh yeah,
or
I spoke with Philip before. Yeah, he's
yeah,
awesome. Awesome guy.
Yeah, he's pretty cool, and
Yeah.
he wrote an article about the failings of VR. I can't remember the title of it. It was sort of like the hurdles, the big ones, and
Hmm.
it was super interesting. And it is what you said,
Hmm.
like the the lightness, the weightness, the weight. And also one interesting thing he said was that when you're in VR, like when you're on the laptop,
Hmm.
you're getting what you want from the digital space.
Hmm.
You're as efficient there, and you're also physically there. So if your parents call you, your kid's crying, you can attend to that. Your phone has a buzz or it starts buzzing, you can pick it up.
Hmm.
But when you're in VR, you're now immersed here. You are now there. More in
Right.
the real world. So there's no you can't manage both at the same time, and you need to be able to.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think when that starts to happen, then people would happily be in VR. And there's also this thing where if you're in VR, you have to sort of move around um, to participate. But who wants to do that, right? When you come home from a 10-hour day job, you just want to lie on the couch and just move your fingers with
That's
a
the thing. I think
game
that
controller.
that can be easily kind of taken care of if they make more VR things that are less about you waving your arms
Yeah,
around and
yeah,
more just having like you have
yeah.
analog sticks and you have all the buttons you would need to play like a regular video game with VR. But I think that
Well,
even
why can't we just put a headset on right now, and then just use mouse and a keyboard and just look around because
true,
it's just a visual experience, right?
right. That's what I'm saying. Like, so I think that it's just like I don't think that the VR companies are looking at it that way. I think in the beginning because they have all these these inputs, if you will, like for your body and all that.
Mm.
So they're thinking like that's what people would want, but maybe there's got to be a rethink done, and maybe you got to take a look and say we want to be immersed visually, but I want to sit down, chill.
Mm.
Maybe yeah.
Yeah,
Some games I want to get up and dance around or whatever it is, and jump around or whatever.
yeah.
But
Very
if you're
rarely
40,
though.
yeah, if I'm 40,
Yeah.
I want to sit and chill, man. I'm not trying to do all that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're running around chasing your kids around all day, I don't think you really want to be then after that jumping around with kids doing
Mm.
stuff. Like I've been playing some
Yeah,
game and
yeah, yeah.
Juxton actually turned me on to this game. I forget the name of it, but you kind of like are floating around and throwing a disc and trying to score goals. And I got these like 10-year-olds. They're literally flying circles around me, and I'm like, man, you know. So, I think there's got
Yeah.
to be understanding that not everybody's gonna want that. You know,
No, no. I think it's immersive enough just on a visual experience level. And
especially with
that's
the
it. Like
hearing
that's
and the angles and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I just think about VR and where I find fun in it, is just hanging out with my friends, six or seven of us, just walking around different spaces, just looking at shit,
Right.
and just talking to other people, right?
Right, and you could do it like
Um,
you said. You could have a
I mean, like if
keyboard
I
for
wanted to
that. You could
play
have a
ball and stuff, if I wanted to play pool or ball or something, I just go meet them in the real world.
hmm
Like you're never gonna get that until 20 years from now, until we're all wearing bodysuits. But till
hmm
then, just talking to them in VR is enough for me.
right, right.
If that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely should be like a little bit of a rethink about what people want from VR, and then
Mm.
what we can offer in the technology side. Because I'm not kind of sold on all the technology being ready. I don't think that when you look at like VR, when you talk about video games, because I'm into video games, we play video games. They have like high end graphics, and then you go to
Mhm.
VR, and you're like in Nintendo 64, like GameCube graphics, and you're like, we don't want that. We want both of those things
Mm.
to exist together. We want high end graphics and VR. You know,
Mm.
and not to
Mm.
say that that's an easy task. I'm just saying maybe the technology is not there, and so maybe a rethink could happen where you can still use
Mhm.
virtual reality technology that doesn't necessarily have to have you literally in the video game. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's got to be,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
there's
yeah,
another use for that technology.
yeah, yeah.
The current technology.
We haven't had many like VR focused people in the space in the NFT crypto space.
No,
I think
and
Artur is the most VR crazy, but in terms of like
right, right.
a whole group of minds that are working on VR and merging that with blockchain,
Hmm.
I haven't seen much of that
No,
discussion.
uh, I know of platforms, but they haven't even really fully come out. So you have like Blocktopia and what was the other one? well, you got Somnium, of course. Here's the thing: is I always felt the same thing. I always said it since the beginning, since I was in the Somnium before in the beginning. I'm like, we're not there for VR yet, and shout out and like much love to Artur for being such an advocate, because no one is like more an advocate for get your headset on, come on, have some fun with me, and like you gotta appreciate that, but I don't feel that we're 100% there when it comes to the masses, the public, and you know, you see Facebook, buying Oculus out and then calling it Meta, whatever it is. But I always felt like the ploy of calling it Meta, it's like almost like stealing our name, you know, like the name that we kind of all came, to agreement. Like this is the metaverse, and then like it felt like they bought Oculus, and then it was like, man, this isn't working, and let's throw a name on this that everybody's talking about. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think if there was one company that's sort of arrogant enough to think that they could be and make the metaverse, it'd be Facebook.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
The problem is they're so big, there's so much money that they can stick around and lose money and lose money and lose money until it's worth it, and then they just win, win, win,
Mm.
win, 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 win when it happens.
Mm.
We'll
Mm.
see. We'll see.
But it's fun. It's challenging though
Yeah.
for us.
To me, it's. I would imagine that VR takes off when it's glasses and not a goggle set. At least
Yeah, man. When
like
it's
the weight
when
of
it comes in
glasses or whatever. Like like not necessarily. It don't have to look like exactly like glasses, but if it's a
yeah,
set of
yeah.
goggles that's lighter on your face and there's less. If you don't. Right now, my Oculus feels like I had a whole computer on the front of my face. And, like I'm carrying my laptop right here. Boom.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
natural,
yeah.
man. It doesn't feel good.
I think VR will take off when it comes in an $8 Happy Meal and it weighs 20 grams, and every freaking kid, man, and your mom and dad has it, and all they have to do is just boop, put it on, and we're in VR.
Yeah,
That's when it'll take off.
yeah.
Until then, we got some time.
It's all speculation until then. But much of this NFT market is speculation. That's really
Mm.
what we're doing until they're going back to their projects not really being at the state of function, or some of them not even really like conceptually like what is this. We're in speculation. Look at the other side drop that happened not too long ago with Bored Apes, and that and I always feel like Bored Apes are kind of like pulling at strings to find a function in the world, and like you have like they dropped the land thing, and all speculation that everybody wants to make Bored Ape money off the land now. It's like, well, when you talk about dropping a land project, you better start showing something now. What is what is why is what, and what's fun about this.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
I always like speculated that when it came to those projects, when it comes to the 10K projects, the PFP projects, it's like, who wants a metaverse that's restricted in one way or another, whether it's who can make money or whatever, to like this many users, whether it's 10K, 50K, 100K.
Mm. Mm.
You need multiple millions of users in order to have a successful game, platform, whatever you want. Facebook could never operate like with an exclusive 60,000 members. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not it.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think what Basie has experimented with successfully and other collections is the expansion of those collections. So you obviously got Macy. And I think right now it's about still building out the product. But when there's millions of people here, I don't see why they wouldn't do like a 100,000 plus collection.
Right.
But
Right.
but at the end of the day, there needs to be some free tier. There needs to be like a way to get involved with nothing
Right.
and have fun. So yeah.
If fun is going to be the point. I mean, that's the thing is, because you have these like you want this like 3D digital experience, and then in their case you have like a kind of a beautiful 3D visual experience. At least that's what I think they're getting at with the art being kind of similar. But you would need still like a lot of people to want to be there, and for what reason, and so whether it's you're like with Decentraland, I always feel like we're trying to get at like the 3D internet. That's like that's the thing. Like if we can accomplish being the 3D internet, then that's really what Decentraland is trying to get at. Sandbox might want to be like more like a Roblox or something like that for you know Web3 space. You know, where you can have like still
Mm,
do business within it. You can still buy and sell things and possibly even make money, have a whole job, but it's still in kind of like game format. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
And then whether a CV ends up being like the art gallery of the metaverse, if you will,
mhm,
we'll see. But you're gonna have to have some sort of function, like broader function, whole genre that your metaverse kind of represents. Otherwise,
mhm.
really isn't necessary. The old adage from geez, I'm losing his name, but he used to say like do you really need a blockchain for that? You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Some things do not need a blockchain, and some things do not need a metaverse. You know?
mhm. True, true.
Yeah. So anyway, that being said, let's talk about Medikey because that was one of your first bigger projects that I remember
Mhm,
you coming with, and it was so cool because we would talk about things. We would always talk about like what this world looks like, and Medikey has been like a membership almost to the entire space for some people. I know some people that got involved with Medikey really early, and they're some of the
mhm,
happiest campers. They're happy. They've gotten involved. They were able to learn about other projects. Sometimes have things airdrop to them that maybe got them into those
mhm,
projects. I know from being involved with different projects that when you might get involved with something and then it would, because you know about that project, if it's the right kind of project, then it would inform you going forward about other things that you may not have ever looked into. And I always felt like
mhm.
Medikey was one of those. Let's talk about how that kind of started and where that idea even came from.
Mm. I think it was just a shower thought, man. It was like, oh, it was this thing for a while in the NFT space in the early days. It was like, why don't more projects connect with each other?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't CV and Decentraland talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we would talk among communities as to and wonder why this interoperability thing isn't happening. And now looking back, it was easy to moan and cry about it back then, but now being a founder, you realize how much work needs to be done to just build a product. So, respected them for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like, all right, well, if projects don't do it because most of them can't, why not why not a project focused on connecting them do it where with an NFT which can connect the two, right?
Right.
So that was the idea. It was like projects can't do it because they're going to be probably spending the next 2 to 4 years building out their own products and serving their own community. But an interoperability focused project can do it and leverage the fact that DCL is already 4 years mature. That Sandbox, when it releases, is 4 years mature. Like these, you can now leverage the fact that there are apps and products that are utilizing NFTs and
Mm-hmm.
say, oh well, here's an NFT project. Just integrate this in a way that can bring a user base to you. So it was a mix of that thought and also there was three things to it. There was that. There was also the idea of millions of people will come to the Web3 space, and so your customer base is as big as Web3 is going to be. So expansive wise, like the scale wise, the scalability model was massive
Mm-hmm.
if it worked out.
Right.
And the third thing was my network at that time was pretty powerful. Like I knew pretty much everyone in the industry. And so I could pick up the phone and say, hey, do you want to do this or that? And most of them would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I was utilizing that network was very small. Like I was doing podcasts or I would do a YouTube interview. But how do you utilize a network that big in a way that brings value to yourself, your equity, and their what they're working on? And Medikey made a lot of sense. So when I thought about the Medikey, the next day I literally called like 20 to 30 people. I remember calling Whale Shark, I called like Neon District, I called you know, all these people that I thought would be interesting to do collaborations with. And they were like, yeah, yeah, hell yeah, we're down for it. So I was like, all right, it's cool. So the next month I launched the Medikey. And yeah, man, it's been good, but it's taken a long time to figure out exactly what and where we want to do things. And I think the last 12 months was that figuring out phase. Now it's like, all right, well, this is what we're going to do. Let's focus 100% on these certain specific things, right? So, yeah, it's been a journey. It's been good.
Nice. So what does it look like going forward? what do you plan on? Not like a whole bunch of alpha, nothing like that. I'm just like, what do you vision, whether it's Medikey
Mm,
going forward or also its its importance to the general space.
mm. I think the good thing about the Medikey is it's so flexible. It can do whatever is hot in the space or whatever the space suddenly finds out to be a new industry, we can play in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we decided on was sort of 3 to 4 pillars that I think um, the Medikey will contribute to, and one of them is the Med Academy,
Mm-hmm.
which is just like a course portal. You can go into it if you have the Medikey. We haven't really worked on it that much, but we have a full redesign and probably another 10 courses lined up, um, and maybe a play to earn incentive to it, or a learn to earn sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
incentive to it. So there's like some models being worked out for that.
Mm-hmm.
So the education process is going to be one. The brand onboarding is a really big one where there's a lot of Web2 brands that want to activate in this space.
Right.
So think like, fashion brands or even legacy brands like, Australian Open wants to come to this space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nike wants to come to this space. Everyone wants to come to this space, but they cannot connect to an NFT native community because
Right.
it's very difficult to, right? We've seen how difficult it is for them to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
Medikey can do that for them.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do is we build their stuff in DCL, the sandbox, or wherever they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
We become part of their strategy to onboard. And what I think is super valuable is licensed wearables or licensed items across this space because these are basically your early art that's wearable, where in 10 years' time, when everyone's wearing stuff and NFTs, people are going to look back and be like, holy shit, Artifact first released their wearables in DCL. These are the first wearables. I'm going to go get them, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are the early stuff. So for me, when I have a partnership with like a really big legacy brand, I want to drop wearables to the whole community because even though they may not see value in it today, in 10 years' time, it'll be like the first time, Amazon released freaking wearables
Yeah, I
or
mean,
something like
you
that.
look at like all the old Coca-Cola stuff that became super collectible into the way future. I don't think that people would have looked at their old Coca-Cola machine at the time. They're just trying to get it out of their store, to get the new
Mm,
thing or whatever. But those things
mm,
ended up being worth a lot of money, and even
mm.
just simple signs, simple things because it's from a time period that it might have been the inception of that company and how they got so big. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And so now you have this old stuff that actually becomes like rarer and rarer, especially in the real world because the things deteriorate and people throw them away or whatever. But
mm,
in our case, in digital stuff, a lot of times the early stuff, like for instance, early Top Shot stuff was like one of like 1,000, per item, and now they make
mm,
like I don't know 30,000 of every run or whatever.
mm,
So there was less users for them to even potentially see. So they're like, hey, we've got like 1,000 of these a piece, or there's let's say in Coca-Cola's case, it might have been made like 300 machines, at the time, and now there's
mm.
way more all over them. They're so generic and the same old, but
Yeah.
they were like for Coca-Cola at that time. They were made like that's what a Coca-Cola machine looks like, as opposed to like that's a vending machine and they slap the Coca-Cola sticker in there and that's a Coca-Cola machine.
Yeah, man. Yeah. No, I think they're going to be a big deal, like these wearables, because exactly what you said. So metaverse strategy is one of our things that we do, where we just say yes to any brands that want to come to this space, and then we sort of activate them and do a drop, or we will build an integration into them, and we got like about 8 to 10 companies lined up for the next 12 to 14 months. It's going to be crazy. And things like massive events as well. So think like events as big as DCL Festival or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, where it'd be run by the Medikey. So like these sort of events, which we've done the modeling for, but we haven't really gone off with.
Right.
So metaverse strategy is one. The Med Academy is two, and then we have the New Ganymede. So I'm not sure if that's come up on your radar. Have you seen New Ganymede?
What is it?
Oh wow, you haven't. It's our virtual world that we've sort of launched. It's
Oh
called New
no,
Ganymede.
no,
You
I
haven't
haven't.
seen it? Oh, dude,
No,
go to
sometimes I'm so
go to the
like
Medikey Twitter.
okay. Hold on, a second, I'm going.
Yeah, do it right now. Go to the Medikey Twitter and watch the trailer.
Oh boy, here we go.
It's pinned.
This is one thing about working in this space is that you end up sometimes just working and working and working, and then you don't look up. And even sometimes for me, I won't look up, and I'll like I'll find out about a project that I probably should have known about so long ago. I don't think I have the music playing on the podcast, but I'll try to describe what I'm seeing here. New, how do you say that?
It's an A. New Ganymede.
New Ganymede. Okay, New Ganymede. Is there an origin behind that word?
Michael came up with it. I think there is.
Play as your meta crew guy. Yep. So you got all your meta crew guys in there as avatars. And if you don't know, the meta crew is like your avatar project. I don't want to call it a PFP project when you got full avatars right here, but it says earn and customize NFT items. You've got like a whole. See, this is like almost like a high end, high quality like video game looking kind of thing. That this not necessarily look like your normal metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
You can fight with weapons, multiple weapon classes. Key holder access to customizable. I missed that. They got like these little flying hand glider dealies, kind of look like Apex Legends. Key and crew holder exclusives. That's probably what that is. Okay. It's like zombie robots. Is that what it is?
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. These are really just a glimpse of what we're building. Right. But if you look at that and you think, all right, how's it going to look like when you get multiple avatar collections in here, which we're already in talks of doing? Mm-hmm. How is it going to be like so what we're doing first is sort of like a central virtual hub where you can just go in there and socialize, because people just want to go in and rep the avatar.
Right.
Or rep an NFT, right? That's the basic stuff. We know that because in DCL we used to love repping our wearables, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And people still do. I mean,
you're gonna go in there, yeah. Mm-hmm. You're gonna go in there, chat, talk, blah blah blah. But then there's this questing feature where you can start quests, and it'll be like shooting games, it'll be tower defense. You can go and do dungeons, and then you can do quests within this space. Mm-hmm. With your friends that look like apes, or they look like however they want to look like when they bring their collections in.
Right.
And then you can go and continue the quest across DCL and the sandbox, so it's cross metaverse questing. So that's our big focus. So we're probably going to spend the next year building that out. And we're working with Improbable as well, or at least we're in the talks of, seeing how they can scale our user base. But yeah, man, that's going to be a big focus of ours, where it's kind of like high quality gaming, with the assets, so the meta key and and avatars, and we're working with some massive brands to get them as well in the game. Mm-hmm. But so we're doing that. So that's the third thing, and then the fourth thing we're doing just integrations within games and apps, which was the first sort of idea with the meta key. So there's a bunch of stuff we're doing, and not many people know much of this stuff because I've been pretty quiet on my Twitter. Mm-hmm. But come Wednesday, I'll have my new house, and I'm going to be screaming at the top of my lungs from the old Matty. For the last 12 months, I've just been, I haven't been able to be Twitter crazy as I used to be. Mm-hmm. But when I go there, it's going to go back to being a social freak, awesome, with YouTube content and all that sort of stuff. Awesome. So everyone sort of knows what we're up to. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that looks amazing. And if you get a chance to just go to the MetaKey Twitter and just go take a look at that yourself, because you can see the high-end graphics already. I mean, it looks very, very similar to almost like Apex Legends. I don't know if you're familiar with that game, but it's a game that my friend plays constantly, and so I'm pretty familiar. But yeah, it looks great, and then I could see that working out great. And that's another thing we're gonna need is see with some of the metaverses that we have right now. They're very, like I said, almost like 3D internet, or this other kind of like not necessarily based on high end, like high poly graphics, but we need that. The gamers look at some of this stuff and laugh, because they look at this stuff and like, why would I do that when I can be in my Xbox doing whatever is in there, and that's high, high, or in my computer, which has even higher end graphics, And so they're asking, why do they need to in their frame of mind dumb it down?
Yeah, fair question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
especially when they're seeing people spend millions of dollars in it, they like can't
That
make
is the
sense
biggest.
of
That's the
it
biggest
at all,
thing for
right?
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they're feeling like they're just laughing at the space because they're saying, hey, like I spent $40 on something that you spent $100,000 on. Why?
Mm,
And that kind of, like
mm.
you're saying, kind of a valid question sometimes. We get
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
lost
yeah.
in our own sauce sometimes. We're like, you understand the value, this and that and the other, but at some point, there's got to be a user level, like we talked about earlier. What is the user level, and how do you involve them, and without alienating them.
Mm, mm. Yeah, there's multiple ways to onboard, man. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, we can be on the web, and do that sort of stuff like DCL, but then there's graphics limitations there, or we can mess around with Unreal or Unity,
Mm-hmm.
which are having these layers of Web3, where you can implement NFTs and start experimenting there. So there's all, I think this whole experimentation thing that everyone's doing, they're doing it their own way,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. And some of them will take off and they'll break barriers, but everyone's valuable, and whatever everyone's contribution, if they're doing something new, is always going to find some information out, right, for the rest of us.
Definitely. I mean, a lot of us are pioneering like areas that other people aren't even looking at. You know,
Hmm.
so like you're talking about, like gaming and gamers are integral to this whole thing. Like in the beginning, the reason I found any of this stuff, the reason I understood NFTs on any level was because I came from a gaming background where I just had the concept like, why am I spending all this money? And not that I was spending a ton of money like on skins and stuff like that, but I knew it existed. I knew people were spending all this money on skins, and some of these games come out the next year. That's almost the same exact game, many of the same skins, and they're charging from again. You know, this Web3, the reason why I took to it was like, well, you have a wallet, it has your skins in it, and those would translate until the next time and the next time, and that makes more sense to me than having to pay that little $5 that you may pay. Let's say it's 5 or 10 or 20, whatever it is that you paid that one year, and you pay that 10 years in a row, and you never owned the
Hmm.
thing, and you never ever owned it outright. So it's nice to be able
Hmm.
to, with Web3 to be able to own some of this stuff outright, and you could. So a lot of people lose the concept or don't have the concept, but like behind the scenes of an NFT, there's a contract address. That contract address can be called on for any project, and this is why Matty's talking about going from one platform to another, because the contract address can be called upon, and then you can then dress that item up to look however you want it to look in that world, or in that in
Hmm.
that engine. Let's say using Unreal Engine, all you would have to do is call for the contract address and then represent it however you want to represent it within the video game, and that's for the developers, and the user doesn't have to worry about that. You know,
Hmm.
I think that's the
Yeah,
concept a lot of people that
exactly.
don't really grasp when they see the simple picture on the front of an NFT. They say, oh well, why would I pay for that picture? It's the contract address behind that is going to let you do things in the digital space that are coming forward, within the next 5 to 10 years.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
So this space has gone completely crazy since we all started. What
Mhm.
has I don't know what has been like the best and worst of it? Like what's your favorite part of all this? It going crazy, the money going well and all that, and what's the worst of it for you guys?
Mm, interesting. Um, the favorite part of it has always been just watching it evolve.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just a curious person that likes to just see stuff grow,
Mm-hmm.
whichever way it goes. So, if avatar projects become the spotlight, so be it. It is what it is, right?
Right.
Um, Even though a lot of us were betting on virtual land and other stuff, like I love seeing the space grow and pivot. Like I love that stuff. So watching it transition into like watching Axie Infinity actually break the play to earn mechanism and it actually work was an
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing because we
Mm-hmm.
know that they've been working on it for a long time, and I think their whole game player base was like 200 people at a certain time.
I was involved with the first 8,000, and we all got a nice little stipend for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So just watching some successes in the space and all that. And also, I started a fund. I'm a one-third partner in a fund, and getting two finance people that were really deep into just traditional businesses and didn't really understand the value proposition of NFTs, seeing them go from uh, you know, being well experienced in the traditional world to really get into the NFT space was like, well, this is quite validating if they can see value in this and they can be amazed and interested into seeing how this is because they're looking at it like, Matty, this is absolutely going to be a big deal. Like
Right.
they're looking at the NFT space and they're looking at the tech and they're saying, real estate is going to start transacting using blockchain. And
Mm.
so they can start to see the parallels and see the trajectory. So it's been good to see just the macro level of thinking and the evolution of the space. The bads, I think, there's a few of them, man. It's like the scams and the spamming has become crazy. The DMs, like I wake up to like 30 DMs on my Twitter, and 25 of them are just promo or scam requests.
Mhm.
um, what else is there? Yeah, just I don't know. The social media part of it. I think the influencer culture is a little bit toxic.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and the tough thing is, it's hard to even think if there's anything that can be done about it.
Mm.
Like, I feel like influence and money are like the two things that are extremely powerful in the world in general. And
Mm.
influence used to be credibility, like back in the real world. If you had a lot of credibility and you had, if you're a king or someone that came from a prestigious line, you would have that influence. But in social media world, it's really someone who just has a really big following, and
Mhm.
that could be anyone with any
It could be
agenda.
for any
And
reason.
once I
Exactly.
have that following, yeah, and they can do anything, right? So navigate, like, you can have a great product, but if you don't, sadly, if you don't have some influencers on board, then it's like an uphill battle to get that product to market. So those barriers or those sort of roadblocks are they're a bit shitty to think about, um, for the common person. But yeah, a few things here and there. But hey, man, we're at what, like, still stage one of
Right.
this whole industry. So who knows how we're gonna go.
And have you spent much time going to like in real life events at all? I know, like with the lockdowns out your way. I mean, it's probably not as easy as like many of the other people.
Yeah, I went to two. I
Mm.
went to Blockchain Australia and NFT
Okay.
Melbourne,
Yep.
and I loved it, man. It
Yep.
was awesome to see real people talk NFTs and just to
Hmm.
see people. It was like a different feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
It's the
it just makes you
excitement
so
you could
happy,
see
right?
on their face. It's like a.
Yeah, yeah, it makes you happy, and then you go have some food with them, you talk, and
Hmm.
you meet new people, and everyone's doing something new and exciting.
Hmm.
I honestly think if we went to in real life events only, we would never think there's any bear market in the NFT space. Everyone's fucking like excited to just meet other enthusiasts.
Yeah, I think that the
Um,
bear market has very little to do with actual like the way we're thinking. I think a lot of people put that on like I kind of get on my friends sometimes like don't make a soap opera out of this, you know, because
mm,
like you would be surprised how much most of this has to do with the general market. I mean, like sometimes the general market is down, and so everybody's down on their investments, whether it be this or that. And so the first things is going to be your most speculative things, which is what we're dealing with. We something brand new. It's speculative, and I think the
mm,
people take that maybe sometimes like the word like offensive, like, oh, this is a speculative market, this is an early asset class. Like, what do you think it is? Like, it's just because you think your NFT project or whatever it is gonna go to the moon, it's definitely not gonna go
mm,
directly there. It's gonna take a little while, and it may
mm,
have some chop in the waters. I've seen the craziest things go on in this space. Just me personally with
mm,
different projects and stuff like that. Toxic behavior, all kinds of stuff. People telling people they don't exist, and whatever. I've seen it all. So, but very rarely is it like specific to like the sentiment of that project outside of like when the information drops for that project. But like the price can be going down on something and can have nothing to do with anybody feeling a certain way. If you had somebody coming in the early days, and this is what I'm talking about in the early days, you have somebody coming in the early days and they spent $1 million on some, several different things that cost $20 a piece or whatever, 100 or $1,000 a piece, but they're spending this much money, and then 3 days later things start to come back in price like crazy. Well, it's because and this one guy just spent $1 million, and
mm,
there's no
mm,
there's no liquidity there. That guy just went in and got
mm,
his share right away. You know what I mean? And I
mm.
literally I've seen that before.
Yeah,
That's why I brought that up. That one I've seen it happen.
yeah. Whales can still move the market up or down.
Hmm.
We've seen that
Especially
a lot.
within these small pockets. And NFTs, many NFT projects, especially in their inception, are really small pockets of. They're not like big income going on in there, you know. So you got a
Mhm.
guy like big whale come in, and he's maybe the only whale like that that's dealing with that project, you know. Uh, so especially in certain projects. So I think that people have to have an understanding of like what's long term. What do we look like in 5 years? What do we look like in 10 years?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man.
With that being said,
Um,
what do you think? What do you think the NFT space looks like in 5 to 10 years?
mm, yeah, it's interesting. 5 to 10 years. I think we've been in it for 4 years, and it's gone from crypto kitties era, or 5 years, it's gone from crypto kitties to where it is now, which has been a pretty big leap.
Mm-hmm.
It's been pretty massive.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder. I'm pretty hopeful that there will be the next 100 million people in the NFT space. There'll be a massive catalyst that will bring them in. Um, I think that'll happen in the next 2 years. So the next 5 years, I think NFTs will probably move past the NFTs are like selling these collections will still be a thing, but I think people will be more interested in, you know, buying 100,000 NFTs for $20 each in some game that's releasing their first set. Much cheaper, more frictionless, more onboarding of the masses, and more practical as to exactly how that's going to be used. Um, yeah.
Now, when it comes to like frictionless, do you think we are going to be heavily reliant on layer two type things, completely different blockchains, or do you think Ethereum actually goes way less gas and finds a way to kind of like take on that
Hmm.
many transactions?
Hopeful of Ethereum doing it,
Mm-hmm.
but even if it doesn't, yeah, layer twos seem to work well. There was an interesting conversation I had with a developer who was working on this wallet mechanism where you just have this one wallet ID, but that represents your wallets across different chains.
Mm-hmm.
So your Polygon or IMX or Solana wallet, you could just give this, your friend that one wallet ID, and he could send you a Solana NFT or Tezos NFT all through that one wallet,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting because suddenly when you integrate that wallet into like in Decentraland, you say, all right, well, you can bring in this technology, then suddenly people will go there with that one wallet. But then DCL could start integrating Solana NFTs and say, well, if you have a Solana NFT, then you can unlock the door here and there. So I think there's going to be some breakthroughs that will combine some of our isolated communities
Mm-hmm.
into the one thing. Um, but yeah, man, I think we're gonna solve some hurdles along the way.
The other thing I'd ask, it's just a random thought of mine because I know I had like this thought not too long ago, and it was like, do we need like a chain link for metaverses? And I don't know if MetaKey is that, but I'm just saying like, this kind of like a place that lets you kind of like transverse other metaverses, so you're not just like such tribalism. I'm like, I'm in Decentraland, I don't go over there,
Mm.
or I don't go over there, I don't even know how to get over there. You know, is there going to be some sort of portal like that that's going to connect people, or do they continue to be separate and just expand within their own genres?
It could be, it could be. And there needs to be some connective tissue there. I have some ideas. So, for example, I would have loved, and I'm trying to find a way to do this where I could just build a fucking 10,000 room mansion in DCL and
Yeah.
say if you have a meta key, you get access to build out any of these rooms. So you don't have to buy land, but you have access to this room and you can bring your homies in there and put a video on the screen.
Mhm,
Only you can get in and all that sort of stuff.
mhm,
So I'm thinking of like if I can do that, then suddenly the Medikey community can have like a space in DCL. We can do that in crypto voxels. We can do that in the sandbox. And instead of buying individual land and putting up your art and forking out the costs for it, suddenly you can have access to all of these spaces. And you're also invested in some way in it because Medicare as a company is working on that tech, right? If we go that way. So I think there'll be, whether we do it or there'll be another solution to it, there'll be some connectivity. There has to be,
mhm.
or else we're all just going to be building our silos. And there is this sort of tribalism where it's like, I'm in DCL, so I'm not going to go crypto voxels because I'm invested in DCL assets, wearables, mana, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But that's got to break down if you do want to um, if you do want to build at a faster rate where everyone's on the same page, or else it all kind of caps out at something, right?
I think that we have to get to the point where there's kids that are used to the metaverse, you know.
Mm.
I think that's what most like digital platforms, like you just use the most basic of words, you know, digital platform like MySpace, Facebook, any of this stuff, even YouTube. Like when it becomes
Mm.
native to the people who are using it, then all of a sudden it seems to kind of catch that fire, you know. So I think that me
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
personally, I think that's where we got to get to. We got to get to like the kids, you know, like I use him as a reference because he was probably the youngest kid at the time. Was Red Nitrous, you know, and like he was like the first younger person I seen take to this and say like, wow, like that might be the norm one day, you know. And I started to see it because I sometimes I love going just popping into a Decentraland like party or something like that and just hanging out and see what people are talking about, you know. And I like to hang out too, and I'm not antisocial nothing like that, but I'm just like I like being in their social realm because I'm like removed from it a little bit now, you know. After kind of being in the game and then going toward the background and not doing too much with until now with the podcast, but like then I go into and I see what their interactions are like because they're not from the same time period I am. You know, when we were starting, you could mostly be talking about building and stuff like that, and now most of the people who are on scene are users and they're having a blast. And so I like to go in there and find out how they're having a blast and what intrigues them. And a lot of times it's the wearables. Some really crazy wearables out there. Shout out to the creators because they're doing the craziest stuff. And this is what we were waiting for. This is what we were asking for, and it looks great. So I got to give it up to a lot of the guys, people making wearables. They're doing a great job, and it seems to be one of the driving factors, to what these people like. But that's kind of like what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that thing when it's like this is natural for these people to kind of interact in this way. And not that it's not natural right now, but it's not always going to be the case when it comes to like the user base is going to move from builder and businessman and all that other stuff to like user all the time. User. And it's not going to be the business owners all the time on scene. So I think
It's good.
that's going to be the point. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'll just. I think I need to do that as well. Drop in randomly. I haven't gone into DCL for a long time,
You
but
go in there, you be like a whole celebrity, man.
no, it's
They're kind of excited to see me.
that was
But
where
jeez, man, you drop in there, man.
we should drop in there. We should just do an event where we're all just hanging around. Nothing special. Just go in and go to someone's event and see what's up.
Invite people to the bar and come hang out. It'd be good. But nah, I mean, I like seeing other people's builds too. I went to I'm not gonna remember the name, so I don't want to do the wrong thing. But I went to somebody's event recently, and it was awesome. It was just like I don't know, different than anything I've seen, and everybody was dancing. There was a DJ going on. The guy wasn't DJing. I think it was I can never remember everybody, but somebody was playing music. I think it was D Fresh was playing music. I can't remember. Tampoco or something was the guy's name that made the build, and it was just so cool. It was like I don't know. It was definitely a party, and it seemed like everybody kind of goes there often. I was just popped in there and like, man, you guys are killing it. You guys are doing exactly what it's supposed to look like right now. At least in my eyes.
Nice.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Polygonal Mind still doing meta trips, which is good.
Yeah, we had talked about that in the last podcast. Me and Rizzo, they're doing the big cube, and the big cube was successful, and I was really happy to see that because the first cube I thought should have been successful, although even Decentraland might have not been ready for it the first time around. And the second time around, just had so much interaction, so many users, and so many, just it really went really well for them. I was happy to see that.
Yeah, nice. Is that cube still going?
I think that.
Or
finished.
is that done?
I think it finished. Yep.
It finished.
Yeah. But they literally had tons of NFTs in there. People got prizes, and a lot of people standing around there, just doing clicking the thing. It's just.
Yeah.
It's great to see that progression because I feel like we remember talking with Talk Sam years back and almost like a worry that it wasn't going to, take off the way it did, And so it's nice to see these things kind of like coming. We weren't always expecting it to go the way it went. If you were looking for a slow growth, you didn't find it. It was like all of a sudden, now we're all here,
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Everything got shuffled a little bit upside down in some places, but
Mm-hmm.
the good thing is the people that were here that have been in the space for a while, they could make sense of it a bit more than the others.
Mm, true. Yeah.
So, you may not have gotten instant success, but you will know what your company needs to look like moving forward because,
Mm-hmm.
you could make better decisions that way. So,
That's for sure.
um, yeah, just jumped into DCL.
Oh, did you? Nice.
Yeah, I'm in Luxury Street East Road. I didn't even know
Nice.
this existed.
Oh wow, luxury. What number is that? I'm gonna drop in there and then we can go ahead and finish up the podcast just like that. We'll finish up the podcast just popping in DCL and see what's going on in there.
Dundas, White Rabbit.
Oh, that's
Where
right up
is
my
this?
alley.
Huh? Kenjo Takada. I'm on -107, -16.
All right, 1 second. I'm signing in right
This is
now.
in Fashion Street.
Oh jeez, I don't want that.
Yeah. Anyway, I just randomly jumped into DCL.
There's so many random things I gotta edit out of here now from popping up on my screen.
Hell, this guy's got a ghost pet.
There we go. Now I'm dropping in.
Metaverse Fashion Week. Oh shit, man, that's a pretty big build. Shibu definitely designed this, 100%. 100%
You said
Shibu designed
using
it.
Shibu design it, yeah.
Yeah. It's got that curvy style that he loves.
Mm. It's funny how you can tell designers, and that's probably going to be a thing I would say, like as we get more and more, and especially like when
Mhm.
I always feel like when we get the more and more professional like builders, like I'm just some guy that try to learn how to build, and some of these people were like, oh, pretty good at Blender and stuff like that. But then there's like gonna be people who are like really really good at this stuff, actively made video games all the time, and they're gonna come in here and do some real crazy things, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we I used to always wonder how it's gonna look like when we have way more developers and designers in here.
Exactly. What was the number on that,
Um,
Matty?
-101, -19.
109.
Yeah. Negative, yeah, 19.
19. Oh, okay. My bad.
I'll just give you the link.
I'm good. I got it.
Yeah, we can end this up soon
Yeah,
if you
definitely.
want.
We can finish up the podcast. I'm just gonna drop in here, hang out for a little bit. Matty, I really appreciate you doing this and talking with me like always. It's just like a very light conversation because just always good to talk to you. Is one of my longest friends in the space. I really appreciate all you've done for me. I mean, with everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you too, man. No, it's
wish
been a
you
pleasure. It's been a
of course,
pleasure. Thanks
of
for
course.
organizing it, and
Definitely.
always happy to jump on.
Definitely, we'll talk sometime again. We'll catch up in a little time to figure out give you some time to get things done with Metakey and so on, and then we'll catch back up for sure.
Awesome, man. Take care.
All right, thanks a lot, guys, and thanks for stopping by Frankie's and NFT experience. Hey.